Welcome to the Comeback Code, the podcast that explores the power of resilience, determination, and the comeback stories. Hosted by myself, Justin Grassfield, this show features inspirational individuals who have faced incredible challenges and through their unwavering perseverance and willpower have managed to rise above their circumstances and achieve greatness. Whether they're looking for motivation, health advice, or just an uplifting story, the Comeback Code has got you covered. So get ready to be inspired because it's time to unlock the secrets of the comeback and unleash your own potential. This is the Comeback Code featuring Lee Smart. And I'm really excited to have you on, Lee.
Man, thanks for having me on. That was a really killer intro, man.
Th-
So
Thank you, thank you.
appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be here and to share my story.
Yeah, I'd really love to hear like your background, how you got to where you are today, and just your general story.
Okay, so I've thought about a couple of different ways to go about this. We can start from the beginning or and run to the now, or start with some of the now and just piece it in. But if I were to start, I would say what I do now is I'm a one-on-one coach with people. I work virtually and I try and help them overcome their own limitations. And I've got some really awesome success stories with some of the people I've worked with. So I do help with weight loss, but I like to get in on the mental side of weight loss because there's always some form of limiting belief behind um, why people end up where they are because it serves them. There's some form of a purpose behind uh, the habits and everything that we have. They actually serve a purpose. So if we actually look at better ways to serve that purpose, we can then get people moving forward um, in a more positive manner. We find ways to meet those needs that the food or the alcohol or the drugs or the porno or the video games or any of that, it all serves a purpose. We just find more positive ways to serve that purpose. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's excellent, man. Like that's exactly what we need to hear. A lot of us are going through similar struggles, and there's all different types of struggles that we will be dealing with in our life. And every one struggle, no matter how small you may think it or how big, it's extremely important in finding other people to connect with and be able to support you and feel like you're not alone in this world is really going to help. So I'm super excited to hear about more in depth on your story and like how what you went through to actually get to where you are today.
So I'm able to help people because I've managed to fuck up everything possible. I have managed to really do some things that will make you go, what the hell? So it all started like as a kid. My mom was an alcoholic. My grandfather was a highly abusive man, old school Marine. He thought that to tear you down was to build you up. So he would tear people down constantly. Like I was a stupid motherfucker and a goddamn little prick from the time I was probably 6, right? And you can see how it showed up in my mom's life. She would numb herself with alcohol and had severe mental issues, right? So whenever I was with her, I was highly neglected. There are many times where I would spend the night out on the porch because she would get drunk, lock the house down, and then I wouldn't be able to make it back in the house. I had to start feeding myself from an early age. You know, I remember in my third grade year, I filled myself up on ice cream sandwiches. That was my diet, was ice cream sandwiches, right? So I got so fat at one point I would jiggle when I walk. And I used to get made fun of for jiggling while I walked, right? Um, and then there was the video games, right? Because you got to find some kind of escape. So video games, and then I started smoking weed whenever I was 12. Started drinking on a regular basis whenever I was 15. Started smoking weed with my mom whenever I was 15. I had stacks of Playboys that I would go and do what young boys do with Playboys whenever I was still in elementary school, right? So it was pretty rough on that end, but also had this shining light of whenever my dad had the opportunity, he would take me away, and then that house was very disciplined, so much so that I hated it as a kid because I couldn't do what I wanted to do, right? Um, But in growing up in that environment, I got to learn two different ways. It's almost like the rich dad, poor dad thing, except for I was the healthy family, the dysfunctional family. Um, so grew up, and my teenage years were very much so sex, drugs, rock and roll. Heavy metal was my thing. Pantera, I just fell into that whole lifestyle there. Played guitar a lot. And it was trying to do my best. So I managed to get into fitness then, but the fitness was so I can look so good that I can get laid, because I'm gonna find somebody to love me, god damn it. So I did so, and I was able to do that quite well. I had a work ethic that was pretty phenomenal. And ended up spending a lot of years intoxicated, and ended up getting with a woman and managed to get her pregnant. And the same year I got her pregnant, a hurricane came through and wiped out my hometown. I lost both my grandparents on my mom's side. This is 2005, right? Um, where I still think of it as one of the worst years of my life, because I moved that year probably 16 or 17 times. Moved all my stuff from one location to another, in and out of storage. Had lost my hometown. Ended up moving to the Woodlands, Texas, which is about 3 hours from where I grew up. And whenever my daughter was born, I remember what my dad told me in that hospital room more than anything else you could possibly believe. He said, "Boy, it's about time you make yourself into something she can be proud of." And that hit me like a ton of bricks, right?
That's
Because
amazing.
yeah, it was absolutely amazing. And I can't help but feel for that man, watching me grow up like I did, and him being somewhat powerless to help me. Um, but thanks to it, like I started me on a path to better. So then I turned that work ethic that I hinted to earlier into let's get to work. And I started working. I worked the jobs, because that's like the American dream, right? You get the job, and the two cars, and the dog, and the 2.5 kids, and the house, and
Yeah, pretty much the
right?
white picket fence.
Yeah. So I started working, and I had been going to school to be a physical therapist. Got an internship early. Found out it wasn't what I wanted to do. Was sucked into the world of the automotive field. And from the automotive field, I worked my ass off, man. I got to where I was working at least 80 hours a week, sometimes 90, 100, 120 hours. Um, and it just wasn't suiting me. I realized that even though I was working as hard as I wasn't making any money. Like it just felt empty and hollow. So that's what got me started on my self-improvement journey. About the same time, I managed to meet who is now my wife, Tanya, who's been an absolutely phenomenal person for me in my life. And found Think and Grow Rich by
Mhm.
Napoleon Hill. And that book started me on a journey I would have never expected in a million years that I'd be going down. And it's this journey of self-improvement, um, which naturally led me to the starting my own business, starting my own mechanic business, right? But the whole time I was reading, and I became a self-improvement junkie, right?
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to look up that book and read that one. I don't have that on my shelf yet.
Yeah, it's really good, man. And the basis of the book is, if you think you can, you can.
Yeah.
You have to really think it and believe it. What you believe, what you conceive and believe, you can achieve. That's the basis of the Napoleon Hill philosophy, right? It was
Yeah,
really
that
good.
that's really how I've like completely looked at my entire life. I'm always just keep going to I'm proven wrong or I'm proven right, and I just keep going even if everyone else in my life doesn't think I'm gonna do it, then I'm just gonna keep pushing through. So I love that philosophy, and I'm excited. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, I remember when I went to go start my first business, I had people that I cared for dearly saying, "Why do you want to work that hard? Um, what? why don't you just go get a job and play it safe and live in security, and you get the house and the dog and the 2.5 kids, and um it's like, no, there's more to life than just going to work and coming home from work and watching TV at night. There's more to be had out there. There's more to be experienced. There's so much awesome out there that just to live that life just would never suit me ever.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Hey, so
Uh,
I got a question for you. So, how did you stay motivated in like your youth and like push through? Because you had a lot of different things coming at you all at once and trying to like make it through there. Because I find like as pretty much I was pretty much confused until I got over 26 years old. So anything under that, it's a journey and a half. So how did you stay motivated and not go even deeper into like say the drugs and alcohol and all that stuff and you got out of that?
the answer is I didn't. I didn't stay motivated. I didn't get out of it. I just shifted that mindset to a different way. So I turned that addictive personality into work, right? I went from pleasure seeking to work, work, work. And then that's going to be my freedom. That's going to be my release, is that work, right? The first half of it, it was really quite literally just survival. There was no motivation at all. And so I guess the motivation is survival. The motivation is I'm just trying to make it through. And some of it was just running away from the pain, and running away from the situation that cause so much pain. And if you have people that are neglected by their parents, what happens to a kid? They think everything revolves around them. What's wrong with me that my parent doesn't love me?
Yeah, for sure. I think no matter what parents do, I feel like nowadays no matter what they're doing, if they're a great parent, if they're a horrible parent, what they're gonna find faults in themselves and they're really gonna look deep into it because like when I was growing up, I had a really good household and like my dad was really pushing me to try to be a professional athlete and like was there supporting me the whole time, but I felt like a failure because my dad went to the Hall of Fame. I felt like I had to achieve way more than I did. And then I ended up like I had won nationals, I went to worlds, and I just felt like I came up short and couldn't compare. And I was like extremely like negative, suicidal about myself, even though I had all these opportunities. Yet I look
Mhm.
at other people and they have the exactly same mindset that I had and how they felt not improved and all this stuff and maybe not wanted. And it's just a mindset that us kids have that we just always want to be accepted and doing better, and we're always looking for more. So it's really hard to pinpoint that exact thing, but it's those little tiny details that make up our life and who we become in the future. So I think it's really important.
My opinion, there's a few different flavors of what you see here. Is one, some of us are just born with that wandering bone. Like we have to go out there and explore and push and can't be okay with things as are. Um, but two, what I try to do with my children is encourage them and let them know that everybody has their strength. And if you come from your strength, then you can't help but go right. But at the same time, when you first start at something, you're going to suck at it. That's part of the process. Um, and that does not make you not okay. That's part of the process. So I let my kids know that you are okay as you are, but also you have to continuously improve and adapt.
For
Um,
sure.
in nature, if you're not improving and adapting, you are dying. Just there is no sitting still in nature, and we as humans are a part of nature. And if you try to go against nature, then you're in for a rough time, right?
You definitely are.
Um,
Yeah. So Another thing I wanted to talk about is how did you use losing everything to the hurricane and overcoming that to like help clients? And what would you say you learned from that moment that you implement into your business now of helping people overcome struggle?
So we hadn't got to the rest of the story yet. So I talked about the first hurricane that wiped out my hometown.
Oh,
Uh,
you've had more than one?
oh man, so the first one was bad. The second one was the motherfucker. Um, so it was 1 mile an hour short of category 5 hurricane, Hurricane Laura in 2020. But to get to that point, I was running a mechanic shop. I started a mechanic shop and I got very good at it over it was almost 7 years I was in business as a mechanic, right? And I was making twenty to $40,000 a week in this business. Um, got very good at it there at the end, and I ended up having to run a fairly decent sized crew. So I had to push myself leadership wise and everything. But in the middle of running my mechanic shop, I had been since I was about 10, I presented with back pain. Um, and this back pain ended up being falsely diagnosed as a bunch of different things. It ended up coming up as an inflammatory disorder called ankylosing spondylitis. Um,
Mouthful for
so
sure.
now we've got a whole nother piece of this puzzle, right? And the doctors put me on a lot of drugs to try and deal with this condition. At the same time, I was running my business. Um, so stress of the business, dealing with the pain, dealing with massive amounts of pain from my childhood and this feeling of insecurity and I'm not enough and I have to be more and this just constantly trying to fill this void inside of me. Um, Always trying to feel good. I would numb myself at night with alcohol, just to try and deal with the stress of running the business. And I was uh, dipping tobacco and the works, right? Ended up presenting with health problems. So I ended up with chest pain and heart palpitations and severe back pain. And then it's ended up moving on to bloody stools and some severe forms of depression, anxiety, the works, right? I lost 40 pounds in 3 months, ended up in the hospital. I think it was 4 or 5 times. Could have swore I was on my deathbed. There was this overall foreboding sense of doom. Something's wrong. I'm about to be over. It was bad, man. It was really bad. So as I'm healing from that, the business takes off and we're making a ton of money and COVID hits and we're doing really well through COVID and holding our own, not only holding our own, but getting better, making more money. I paid off $40,000 worth of debt that last summer I was in business. And then the end of August rolls around and here's this hurricane. Boom, wipes me out, wipes out my business, takes my building and drops it in the neighbor's parking lot. Um,
Wow.
I came home from that, and my whole identity at that point was wrapped up in that business, and now it's gone. But I knew before then that I was done. Really, truly felt like I was polishing turds for a living, working on cars. That's the way I looked at it. I was polishing turds for a living. Um, so that comes the next major turning point. So I've had a couple of turning points from there. One was the major turning point of my dad saying, "Hey boy, you got to make yourself into something she can be proud of." The second one was, "I'm not going anywhere working as I am. Let's start my own business. Let's make life on my own terms." And here's this third turning point. Hurricane wipes me out. I managed to burn myself to a crisp in that business, right? And now I have to face me and who I am and heal and take a look at that, right? So I went a bunch of different ways from there. Went a bunch of different ways from there, healing, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. couple of gentlemen that helped me out tremendously. It was a functional medicine doctor named John Mitchell from Pennsylvania. I started working with him. He helped me rebuild my health. And his overall integrity was so high that I would constantly try and sabotage the process, and he would not let me. He was like, "No, screw you, dude. Stand up, do what needs to be done." Didn't let me get away with trying to uh, put stuff off on other people, and it was just a big story there.
That's
And then
amazing.
there was another
I had
gentleman.
something very similar too as well. Like I went to a functional doctor as well for that specialized in neuroscience. So,
Yep.
and that's how I ended up getting better. And I don't know if I would have survived if I didn't meet him. So that's really cool to see someone else that's went through that
Isn't
kind of
that
journey.
amazing? Isn't it amazing the healing work being done these days when you start to step outside of the medical community, the conventional medical community? I am so strongly opinionated against conventional medicine. It's unbelievable because I really truly feel like they tried to kill me, right?
I felt the same. Like,
Right? And then I go to functional medicine. We take all the medicine away. We're taking all the drugs away, and we are healing with. We're taking a look at the whole picture, right? The whole entire picture. We're going to take a look at it. We're going to use food. We're going to use mindfulness practice and all the other different things. We're going to take chemicals out of your system, right? Stop heating your food up in plastic because all the xenoestrogens. Um, I'm like, we can go down this rabbit hole for freaking ever, right? Let's clean up your air. Let's clean up your water. Let's clean up your cleaning chemicals that are destroying your hormones. Let's clean up your diet because our food supply today is terrible. On and on and on, right? Um,
hmm
but then there's also the mental aspect of it. And I tell you who really helped me with the mental aspect of it tremendously was Trip Lanier. He runs the New Man podcast. For any of your listeners that really want some amazing stuff to listen to and to help move them forward in their life, check out the New Man with Trip Lanier. It's unbelievable. So I started working with Trip Lanier. I started working with John Mitchell, and these guys managed to help move me forward in a way I never expected. So I ended up, thanks to them, I was like, this is what I want in my life. I want to be a coach. I want to help guys do what these guys did for me. Right. Um,
It's
so I
incredible.
started, yeah, I started training, and I swear to God, I've spent $60,000 so far, and that's barely a drop in the bucket for what I will spend on trying to improve my skills to be able to do this work because of how much my life has improved because of it. I went from a place of unwhole pain, burnout, uh, neglect, insecurity to um, the amount of joy that I have in my life now with my wife and my kids, and with the things I'm able to help other guys put in their life because of the training that I've done. It brings so much joy to my life, so much satisfaction that I want to share more of that with everybody. Like, it's amazing what happens whenever you really put the work in, man. So you remember that comment that I posted whenever you're reaching out for podcast people. A couple
hmm
of big things that I did in experimenting. I heard about some of the therapies that they were doing using hallucinogenics. Um, and so, uh,
Yeah, I'd like to hear more on that.
yeah, so it really two really fun stories came out of that, and the healing that managed to come from. I don't recommend doing it the way I did it because I've always been this do it yourself, or I'm going to do things my way, and it's not not a good way to do it because you can end up going on a path that's pretty dangerous and dark and nasty. But I had a friend invite me to a place outside of Phoenix, Arizona, and I ended up meeting an Army Ranger there. And this guy had done a ton of work in his life with hallucinogenics. He was shot in Afghanistan in 2012 and had done some pretty major work in his life. So we ended up doing an ayahuasca ceremony together in the desert in Arizona in an RV.
That sounds
Uh,
like a good time. That's my kind of weekend.
God, good time. I got to explore my brain in ways I never thought possible, right? And what I got out of that experience is no, I'm okay. The shit I have been through in my life, not only am I okay, I am well suited to helping other people be okay because I have some lessons that I've learned the hard way that I want to try and help a bunch of other people not have to learn it the hard way like I did, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm well suited. No matter what you do to me, I'm coming out of a pile of shit. I'm smelling like roses because I've already been through the worst shit there is. Um,
Yeah.
Granted, I never lost my family. That'd probably be worse, but uh,
Well,
it,
everyone's has their own perception of what's bad to them, so it is the worst until
exactly,
something
man,
else happens.
exactly. So there was that experience. I got to find out that I was okay. Not only was I okay, I was better than okay. I was just well suited to helping others, right? And then I had another experience in a different desert. So this is coming from I'm from South Louisiana, right? I'm a bayou guy, but I have all these experiences in the desert for some reason. Uh, so I had met a Ukrainian refugee in the desert in West Texas, outside of Big Bend, Texas, the national park. Beautiful area. I love going hiking out there. And we ended up, we had a great time. And he's like, "Hey man, want some acid?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, let's have some." So he and I are walking through the middle of the desert under a full moon, um, tripping on acid. And that's when I realized what the true meaning of life is, in my opinion, in my perspective. It's making amazing connections with amazing people and doing meaningful work, right?
Yeah, for sure.
If you could do a lot of both of those things, you've lived a pretty damn good life.
Absolutely. So I'd like to maybe talk more about the hallucinogenics and stuff. I definitely don't suggest any of these things for someone that's dealing, like, it's all individual for everyone. But like I
Yeah.
had a scenario where my neurologist, he actually told me to try to go to a functional scientist to work on my brain infection because I wasn't allowed, they weren't allowed to work on my brain for my specific illness because it was not approved. They just found out about within 10 years, so it wasn't covered under the healthcare, so I had to go elsewhere. And one of the things my neurologist said was to try like mushrooms to help. And so I was like, screw it. I didn't really care. My heart was freaking almost failing. It wasn't beating with my body. Everything was all fucked up, and I thought I was gonna die. So I was like, screw it. I'll try these. I've never tried any of this kind of stuff before. My brother's like, we're playing Call of Duty, and he's like, let's just do it. He's like, yeah, just take the whole bag. So I fucking
Oh,
the
a full on
whole
ego dissolving dose, huh?
yeah, the whole bag. I don't know. There's like 12 or 14 mushrooms in that bag that I ate,
Oh,
and 12 hours of me going through like 7 different phases of different things. And like I went from, I was scared out of my mind playing Call of Duty. And then there's a point where like I've never been so good at Call of Duty. And I got like the stats to prove it on there. I was just like getting like 20 some plus kills on like Warzone and
huh.
all this. And like I'm like, why is everyone moving so slow? I'm like, this is the easiest game ever. And then it just went complete to shit. And then, but like
Flipped on a dime. Huh?
afterwards, I got to a point, I think it was 9 hours in, and it's pitch dark. And I could feel like it felt like my brain was actually trying to reconnect things better to
Mhm.
like trying to fix the brain. And like I actually truly feel like it was. And I went from barely getting up to go to the washroom without having paralysis for 3 hours after to um 2 weeks later, I was able to walk a block with my walker. So I don't know if it was the mushrooms or what, but I definitely felt like after that, and my perception of life was in so much better. I appreciated my circumstances. I wasn't negative. I was happy for months and months, and I was depressed before and suicidal. And I completely lost all my suicidal feelings for that and felt like I had hope again. And then I
Right.
had a secondary where I did the mushrooms again, and I was like 9% body fat and like 209 pounds. And I just felt fat. I look at my mirror and I'm like, I'm overweight and everything. And after I did I looked at my, probably freaking 30 minutes. I looked in the mirror. I'm like, that's what I look like? I'm like, I look so skinny. And I had such mind dysmorphia of my body that I had no idea. Like, I just thought I was fat no matter what. And like all these different, and just opened my mind to what actually was going on. And like now I see myself, I'm like, hey, I'm not actually super overweight. And like it changed how I thought. So I'd like to hear like how it changed your mentality and like depression or whatever you've went
Yeah.
through.
I've had a few experiences, and it all depends on how you treat the experience, right? That the experience deserves respect. It's not a going out and partying with the buddies on the weekend kind of experience. This is if you go into it with the intention, the proper intention of um I'm in this to really improve myself, to explore my mind, to maybe change a couple of perspectives that are holding me back. That's that's the proper intent in my opinion, right? It's not a partying on Friday night and hanging out with the buds kind of deal. And there are more and more clinics popping up that are finding tremendous results in therapy using some of these psychedelics because you manage to remove some of these barriers that pop up around certain traumas, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
by no means an expert anywhere close to some of this stuff, but I do find it very fascinating when you start to talking about overcoming trauma, obviously because of some of my background, right? There's a really good book called The Body Keeps the Score, and that is going to be your slightly more normal methods, the stuff that you should probably do beforehand before you start working towards psychedelics, right? This is trying to calm your nervous system down and help you assimilate some of these traumas and everything beforehand. And I wouldn't recommend doing any of that kind of stuff except for under or doing the psychedelic part of it, except for under extreme circumstances, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, because that's such a it can be very dangerous. I know you've heard about people having bad trips.
Oh yeah,
And if you start
definitely.
to explore your brain, if you got some demons in there that are just waiting to pop up, then good luck dealing with them on your own.
Mm-hmm. I
Because
was
that can get dangerous.
I was listening to Mind Pump and Ben Greenwood was on there. I don't know if you listened to that episode, but he
Uh-huh.
talks a little bit more about like a lot of these have like cultural balances, but using these practices and like connecting to like the spirit world and like God and all this stuff. And
Hmm.
um I don't know how this all, but you do definitely, it's almost like you do go to a different place. And he said how it can be very dangerous because he's like, if you are seeing like loved ones and past people that have died, there's also all these negative entities that could be going after you just as well. So it's a very dangerous spot. And it was cool to hear because I never thought of it in that aspect until I listened to him and like, man, I'm like, I don't know if he's right or if he's wrong, but I don't know anything about this stuff and like
Yeah,
any of these things could be true. So
yeah,
it definitely could be dangerous for whatever's going on. And if
yeah.
you're in a bad headspace and you just keep going downward, things could get way worse real quick. So
Mhm. So let me ask you, did you find yourself to be far more empathic after your experience, like
So
more in tune with other people's experience?
this is absolutely insane. So I didn't, so for my concussions, I completely disconnected from, I didn't like culture, I didn't like mountains, I didn't like trees, I didn't like anything that I saw. It was just like all I was craving was adrenaline because adrenaline got rid of my headaches and I didn't care about anything else. After I did the mushrooms, I noticed the little details, the pins in the tree that you can see. I noticed the beauty in that, the leaves, the how the buildings are made, how the mount I feel like really hippie talking about, but it literally opened an aspect of my life where I was like, I didn't know this. I'm like, I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, why do people like sightseeing and why do people like going to the mountains? I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like, and then after I was like, holy shit, I've been missing this the whole time. Like I didn't see beauty in anything. It was just I have a goal. Let's go towards it. There's no beauty, nothing, and it like opened my
Mhm.
mind to see different, and the colors are brighter. Everything, like I can notice, like there's ants going, and like all these small little details that are in the picture that I never, it wasn't putting together. I had a small vision, and it really opened it
Mhm.
up. So it was wild.
Yeah, it changes the perspective to where you have far more grateful for what it is that you're experiencing now, right? A lot of times we live on this, I call it autopilot. We just go through our lives, we do these activities that we always do. We wake up, we put our clothes on, we brush our teeth. We never put any thought into anything that we're doing. It's just straight up autopilot. And whenever you start to actually take the time to look around you and see the beauty in the world, you start to see more of it.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's one of the practices I try to have my clients do on a regular basis is a gratitude practice. And it works the same way that, say, if you buy a green car, and then all of a sudden you start noticing that same green car everywhere, right?
That and
Because
Jeeps.
yeah, you managed to prime your brain to see that car because of what you've put into your brain. You bought a car, now you see it everywhere. Same thing with gratitude. If you start to practice gratitude, you start to see more often things to be grateful for. When you come from a grateful frame of mind, um, you start to see the positive in the world. And they say that the absolute most positive emotion a human being can possibly have is gratitude, and that's why.
That's incredible. That's powerful. And it's just like you have like 50,000 thoughts a day, and if you can switch half of those to being positive, next thing you know, you've completely changed who you are as a person. You're not the same person you were yesterday. You're a whole new human that doesn't notice those negative things here and there. Like when I changed, like I was so negative, hateful, and like everything's like, why did this happen to me? And then it's like, oh, I was blessed with this opportunity to get a brain infection. I was blessed to have this because it opened my mind to all these other things and abilities where I can connect on a more personal basis to of plentiful amount of people that I can help now that I wouldn't have been able to touch otherwise. So I was blessed to lose 11 months of me walking.
Yeah. So I think the important part to point out here is that it's not all about the psychedelics. It's about the rest of the work too, right?
Hmm.
Um, because I just heard recently something that really stuck with me hard from Brad Lee was your mind is a garden. You get what you plant in it. What you plant in it and nurture is what grows out of it. And if you're constantly planting the news in it and you're planting social media in it and comparison that I'm not enough, then you're going to constantly feel like the world's out to get you. The world's falling apart because you're watching the news, right? That's all you ever feel about is good Lord, the world's going to shit. Well, it's because they sensationalize everything. God, I can't even speak all of a sudden. They sensationalize everything. on the news to where it's all a big deal. Why? Because that's how they make their money. They attract more eyes that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not all that way. They don't report about the things that are small little pieces of good because it's not a big fancy story. It doesn't make them any money. Social media, you get constantly compare yourself to other people, then you constantly feel like you're less than. You get what you plant in your brain. You're going to feel like you're less than. If you start to practice things like gratitude and service and putting other people first, that was a huge part for me. My whole first part of my life was it was all about me. And there is no more miserable person on the planet than somebody that's only worried about themselves.
For
You
sure.
start to talk about helping other people and move other people forward and really truly serve other people, um, that opens the opportunity for you to be happy because you're not focused on you. You're focused on helping other people through their suffering. There's no greater joy than watching other people grow into the people they could be. Um,
One of my favorite thing is when you're working with a client and trying to get them, it might be weight loss or whatever, but the first thing you like normally fix is like their energy, their how they think, things like that. But
mhm,
seeing they don't see a difference in themselves, but seeing that their voice is higher, they got more energy, they're excited on the call, and like going from this person that's like shrugged down and upset to something he's like all pumped up and like ready to go. And he's like, "Thank you, I appreciate it." And they don't really notice those things to themselves as much because they're around themselves 100% of the time. But it's
yep,
crazy to see like the change over week over week over week,
I
and that's
know.
what really makes it worth it is seeing the personality change of how much happier that people get.
Yeah. And that all starts with what do you truly want, right? Um, when you really start to dig down deep into what do you want, I give you a great scenario. One of my favorite clients, the guy came to me, he was facing a decision. He thought he wanted to be a monk. Um, and we started to look at it. What's the craving behind that? And that was he wanted to be disciplined. Um, so he started to look at different ways in his life that he can start to just enact little pieces of discipline at a time and grow that discipline muscle piece by piece by piece. And he went from wanting to be a monk to asking out the girl of his dreams. She said yes. They started dating. Here it is a few months later, they're engaged. So he went from, I want to be a monk to engaged to the girl of his dreams. He never thought that he would be good enough for this woman back then. And one win after another, after another, after another. Not only is he does he feel strong enough to be great for her, he was able to withstand this unbelievable bout of racism to get there. I'll tell you, this story is absolutely amazing. One of my favorite stories from any client I've had was he decided he wanted to marry this girl. And he's a black man and she's a white girl. And he went to go ask the father for her hand in marriage. And the father and the grandfather were there. And they quite literally had a discussion with him. Crows need to stay with crows, and the sparrows need to stay with sparrows. Um, and it was a no. And my client went home sick to his stomach, right? And obviously there's more to the story than this, but I'm just trying to hit the high points of it. Went home, did not sleep that night, absolutely in agony because he didn't want the woman he loved to have to choose between him and her family, because he loves her so much. He just doesn't want that for her. And he agonized and he went to church and prayed and agonized and sick to his stomach. His arms went numb, his feet went numb, full on panic attack. His mouth went dry, started having chest pains. And despite his body fighting him like that, he had built up the strength through working together, that he had the strength to go face this man down again the very next day. despite having a panic attack. And he went and had a one-on-one discussion with him. They talked for hours. And because he went and he stood up for this girl and stood up for their relationship and said, look, there is nobody on this planet that's going to love her like I love her. There is nobody on this planet that's going to take care of her like I'm going to take care of her. Um, I would really prefer if I had your blessing in this marriage. And that man said, yes, you most certainly can marry my daughter. And holy Jesus, man, just to having the strength to go face this man down. You know, imagine what most people would do in that situation. They would go behind the back. They would take the easy, comfortable way out. And he had been facing down so many things, facing them down, diving into that discomfort so much. They just dove right in and did it without any input from me. He had already built that up on his own, right?
Yeah,
And
that's it. That's
um,
amazing.
oh, it was absolutely amazing that he went and did that. And now he has a relationship with this man and the woman, and they're building a life together that is, you just have to know it's going to be, obviously, it's going to have its problems because it's a marriage, right? But it's going to be good because he's committed and he's strong and he's freaking killing it, right?
Yeah, that's just incredible and empowering, and it's it's crazy to see how one little thing that they might get over builds to another and another, and eventually you have this huge decision and opportunity. And do you back down or do you go behind the back? But you've built so much strength over getting win after win after win that you're like, hey, I think I actually can do this. It's like you've changed from a losing mentality to a winning. So you believing in yourself again really comes through strong. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love client stories like that. I've got another guy that was he would show up at night and be completely exhausted from work. His super high stress job. People's lives are literally on the line. The guy was 290 pounds. Um, and he would come home and just be a dick to his kids because he just had nothing left, right? He was just at that point where, no, I can't deal with this anymore. I've dealt with enough. Y'all get away from me or else I'm going to lose my shit. I
Yeah.
know there's a lot of people out there that have been in that situation. And in working together, we've managed to change this guy's energy around enough. He has lost 50 pounds, and
Incredible.
which is not the big part of the story. That's awesome. The big part of the story, he has energy to give to his wife. He has energy to give to his kids. He shows up in their life way better than he did. And there's the important part of it. Like, are you growing up to be the adult that you want your kids to be? And this guy is finally, he is being the guy he wants his kids to grow into, right?
Yeah. Hey, so um I got a question here. So how would you describe what you need to do to overcome some of these like these struggles in someone's life, say you like the drugs, the addiction, overcoming like the hurricane, like your overall experience, what would you tell to like the listener of what they need to do to try to overcome that and persevere, like your overall goal?
Dude, that's an absolutely fantastic question. Putting me on the spot here. Um, it's less of what do I need to do. Everybody thinks in form of task, task, task. And and I ask you the question, who you need to be the person that is going to make all these little bitty tiny decisions that sets you forward and a path to where you want to be, right? Who do you want to be in your life? Like a really fun exercise that I do with my clients is we're at the end of your life and you're up on a hill and people are coming up the hill. Not only is it the people that you love the most, but it's everybody you have touched in your life plus everybody that they've managed to touch because of your influence. They're all coming up this hill and they say to you, thank you so much. This is what I was able to achieve in my life because of the life you led. What do you want those people to say about you? And when you start to come from that place of who do I need to be that person? Who I want to be that guy that if you've got an issue, you feel comfortable coming to me. I want to be that guy that you need something. Come on. Let's take a look at it. Let's help you solve your own problems. Because if I solve your problem for you, I haven't really set you forward, right? If I help you figure out how to solve your own problems, now that's the difference between give a man a fish and teach a man to fish. I've helped you for a lifetime. If I help you figure out how to solve your own problems, so who do you need to be? That's the grand question, right? And one of my fun exercises is what archetype do you want to take on that would make this decision? And some people like have other family members that they really looked up to. Some people have historical figures that they really looked up to. Some people have like superheroes or fictional figures that they looked up to, you know. And if you take what would that person do in this scenario? And I don't know, are you old enough to remember the old WWJD bracelets?
I think so. It's been pretty old, but I've heard of them.
Yeah, it's what would Jesus do? So the question is, what would Jesus do in this scenario, right? And if you take and you really find your own archetype that speaks to you even stronger, because not everybody can relate to Jesus, right? If you find your own archetype, what would that archetype do in this scenario? Then you can automatically answer your own damn decision, make your own decision, right? You can answer your own question. And like Arnold's a really good archetype for me, amongst others. Dimebag Darrell's another really good one. I love my heavy metal. Um, but Arnold, what do I need to do? Well, I need to quit being a girly man and show up, huh? um, Dimebag Darrell's a great archetype for me, a good role model in the fact that not only was he a virtuoso at what he did, he was a tremendously phenomenal person and he had fun with it. You know, there's this idea of being a virtuoso, and I'm going to sacrifice my life to being a virtuoso. And then there's also this idea of I'm going to be the best at what I do, but I'm really going to experience life and enjoy life and love life while I'm doing what I'm doing, right? So that's what Dimebag reminds me of in my life. Arnold tells me to get off my ass and get to work.
Yep, me too.
Right. Ralph Waldo Emerson is another one for me that Ralph reminds me that I need to trust in myself. And another one is your actions speak so loudly that I can't hear the words that you're saying.
So powerful.
Yeah.
Man, that was a great answer to that question. You surely like everyone listening definitely learned something out of that, and I really appreciate that. So, lastly, my last question would be, what would be your like go-to one or two books or maybe podcasts that you listen to that you'd like to give a little shout out for people to try to jump into and learn more from that's helped you grow?
Whew. Um, you're coming down with all the hard questions here. Um, for guys, I think one of the most recommended books I've come across is No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. Um, Unbelievable book on how to be authentic and be yourself and show up in life as you and stop worrying so damn much about what everybody else thinks. Um, so that one was absolutely phenomenal for guys. I mentioned The Body Keeps the Score before. That's really great for anybody that's been through really difficult situations. Um, Stephen Kotler has a book, The Art of Impossible, that is absolutely phenomenal. It help you tune in your body to try and enter more of the flow state. Highly productive state, you know, and also can be it's almost intoxicating in its own right. And everybody's had these timeless moments where they enter um, a period to where it's almost like the ideas or the music or whatever it is just flows right through you, and you're just a transmitter and taking these amazing ideas and throwing them down on paper to write, or awesome music just pops out, or you just managed to close that one sales deal that because you just kind of on this higher state. But so that was a really good book. um you know How to Win Friends and Influence People. You almost can't go without mentioning that book, um because we live in a society. If COVID proved to us anything, it's that we are very much so a social creature, and without social interaction, um, we are not whole. We we start to see massive amounts of mental illness pop up when we're not social. So, yeah, How to Win Friends and Influence People help you get along much better in a um, social context.
That's some amazing books. I look forward to looking at them, some of them myself. And where can I find you on social media?
Right now, you can find me on Facebook, Lee Aaron Smart. Um, I've been running my business almost strictly through reference and word of mouth. I've just recently started to branch out and start to build more of a digital presence. So right now, the best place to find me is Facebook.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate you coming on. That's been amazing talk. I've felt like I got to know you on a deeper level, and it's really exciting. And just want to say thank you. And for anyone listening right now, I hope you can go follow him and maybe hit subscribe on this podcast, and we can see you with more guests. And just excited to build from here since we're just starting out. But appreciate that.
Man, thank you for having me on. It's been a really awesome experience, man.
Yeah, it really has. Thank you, man.